No snow day keeps us away from a conversation with Chip Patterson. Part of me wanted this to be yesterday, but I thought, no, I want to collect my thoughts. We had other things to talk about as well, and now let's delve into the national championship of the college football playoff. First of all, I trust you're having a good snow day as well.
I mean, look, the ski bib hasn't gotten used in many years. You know, like I've got a 4-year-old, I've got a 2-year-old, and like they just haven't had much snow in their lifetime.
No.
What was this, like a 3-year snow drought? Yeah. So now to get a little bit of ice and slush a couple weeks ago, and then we got out this morning, and it's powdery for where I am. Not enough to make a snowball, but enough so that if you've got a flat bottom plastic sled, you can have a nice little run down the road. Very, very nice. I am envious of that. I go back in the. I've been called old a lot recently, but that's okay. That's just a fact. But I remember those days. All right, let me get your thoughts overall. I don't know we've talked about this, but now that it's over, let me get your thoughts on the tournament as a whole. When you think back on this 12-team event, the first one, what are your thoughts? Okay, first I'll start with the champions, Ohio State. They ended up putting together, by the end of their playoff run, not one of the most dominant runs and not one of the most dominant seasons, but in terms of the opponents that they beat. Obviously, they finished number one in the final AP Top 25 poll. Shocking. But they also had wins against 6 other top 10 teams. And that to be able to go through Tennessee and then Oregon and then Texas and finish it up with Notre Dame, that is something where at the end of the day, when they are the team that is standing on the top of the mountain, you cannot say that they did not earn it. You cannot say they did not deserve it. And when we expanded the playoff, there was part of me that wondered if we would have some bracket luck champions, if we would have some teams that just kind of backdoored their way into the opportune matchup because of the way that a bracket would fall. So Ohio State by no means is an undeserving champion, a very impressive run, especially when you consider the caliber of the opponents that they beat on the way to claiming their ninth national championship. The other big takeaway, the good teams won. And the piece of data that I used for this is that betting favorites went 10-1 straight up throughout the entire playoff. And not only that, they were 9-2 against the spread. And the only underdog that won, I'm going to use big air quotes here, underdog, because it was a 1.5 point underdog of I believe, that would be Notre Dame, I think, getting over on Penn State. Either Penn State or Notre Dame was a 1.5 point underdog at some point. They are the only underdog to win, and that was a total coin flip. So we've again wondered, okay, in NCAA tournament, the good teams do not always win. In college football, the good teams usually win in these postseason games. That has carried over from the college football playoff. And then, I'm going to think back about the playoff that was in terms of the things I'd like to see change moving forward. That includes having seedings and rankings that are in line. I think that the bracket was incredibly unfair to Oregon, and I think it was unfair to Georgia because Oregon in its first college football playoff game drew what was the 6th best team in the country at the end of the regular season, according to the AP poll. And the number 2 team, Georgia, drew the number 3 team, Notre Dame. A 2 versus 3, a 1 versus 6, those should not be quarterfinal matchups. But because we give Arizona State a fast pass, because we give Boise State a fast pass, and because Notre Dame is not permitted to be in the top 4, even when they are the 3rd best team in the country, that has set up for imbalance in the bracket. So I would like to see that addressed moving forward. I'd like to see more on-campus home games beyond the first round. But at the end of the day, it gave us an entertaining playoff and a deserving champion.
Chip Patterson, as always, on a Wednesday is joining us. All right, so you mentioned bracket luck. In some ways, Penn State was the beneficiary of some bracket luck in terms of the way the seeding worked. There was no way around it. They didn't get bracket luck because somebody was upset. They got bracket luck because of the way the whole thing ultimately was structured. But they didn't get all the way to the championship game. I think you're always, unless they change it, you're always going to get those types of things that will impact a team to get maybe to a semifinal. But I don't think you can win it. You can't look at bracket luck and say, oh, they got lucky. As you pointed out, Ohio State had to run the full gauntlet in order to do it. Who do you think was happiest about everything that we saw? In terms of a conference commissioner, who do you think was the happiest?
Ooh.
Actually, no. I think it's better. I mean, obviously Tony Petitti, because he has a national champion and he got the most teams in the playoff. Who was unhappy about this?
I do think that there's, I think there's at least enough disappointment to spur some creativity coming out of our friends in Charlotte, because to hear Jim Phillips' suggestions of the different ways that they would try to tweak their own conference championship outlook, and the different, that does seem like okay, that didn't go like we hoped. Let's start figuring out other ways to get creative. Let's start figuring out other ways to be able to give our conference the best chance to be successful. If Jim Phillips and the ACC were happy with the way that the 12-team playoff went, he wouldn't be coming back offering the kinds of suggestions that he has offered. I'm sure you've discussed, some of them already, but those seem like those seem a little gimmicky.
Right.
It seems a little putt-putt.
I want to talk to you about this. First of all, I'm not sure. Like, I think you could have given a spot to Miami in this tournament. I think you can make an argument. Miami over Indiana, separated by just one loss. Miami's two losses were not bad losses, really. Syracuse ended up being a very good team. It was on the road. We can argue about Georgia Tech ended up right. That was Miami's other loss, right?
Yep.
Georgia Tech ended up being a very good team. In fact, preseason top 25, if we buy in any way those way too early top 25s. So maybe Miami gets in, but it would have been at the expense of SMU, probably, and Clemson obviously won the league. When I saw that story, my first reaction was, what in the world are you thinking? Because you can declare whatever you want. You can declare a regular season champion, and you can declare a tournament champion, with air quotes. But the College Football Playoff Committee is only going to recognize one of them. So what exactly are you doing? Is there an NIT for the college football playoff that I'm not aware of?
All right. So again, if I am only to position myself with somebody who is thinking about how they landed at this in a way that would better the ACC, what it would do is it would essentially protect their one champion, one team from being for the college football playoff, because they would say, this is our champion. The College Football Playoff Selection Committee, which is told to select the top 5 conference champions, would then have that team as one team in. And then by having your 2 and 3 play on conference championship weekend, the day before Selection Sunday, what you've done is you've added a quality win for a 13th data point, a quality win for what would be your second team in. It is orchestrating, it is engineering the opportunity for a second team to prove its worthiness in a way where they would have been at home. Now, what's interesting is this year, that would have meant that SMU gets in automatically while Clemson and Miami are playing in Charlotte, with the winner hoping to be able to beat out other at-large teams. I don't know if that would work out if Clemson beats Miami. That might, that situation leaves the ACC as a one-bid league. So, just using this past year as an example, I was like, I don't know if that will work the way that you would hope it works. But ultimately, where in my most, not sympathetic, but just trying to consider how they got there, it seems to me like you protect your conference champion, you protect one bid, and then you give the opportunity for a guaranteed quality win for a second team to get in. Now, obviously, if in 2026 and beyond, we go to automatic qualifiers per conference, then that won't mean anything. There's a lot that I think can and should be discussed in terms of expanding the conference schedule, because to me, declaring a regular season champion when you only play 8 conference games in a 17-team league is not going to be fair. I mean, it's just not. You cannot say that an 8-game schedule is a proper representation of strength across the conference. And so you'll have situations like an SMU where, guess what? They didn't play any of the good teams. They finished 8-0, and now they're going to get their way in, while Clemson and Miami had to play more difficult games. I don't think that necessarily would be something that, even internally in the ACC, I don't know if I was a sitting athletic director, I don't know if I would support that, because of just sort of the roundabout way that would be, trying to get there. Again,
the optics are bad. It makes you look like it's a total gimmick. Now, here's one element of his plan. Not this one. This one I think is ridiculous. And I mean, I keep saying this. I shouldn't have to preface it. I love Jim Phillips. I think he is as good a human being as there is in intercollegiate athletics. I'm not even sure. Like, we're going to talk to Bubba Cunningham at the end of the week on Friday. I think Bubba Cunningham and Jim Phillips are in a class by themselves in terms of people that I deal with. I mean, they're just great people. Jim, man, this is a crazy idea. But he did think, he did kind of opine about maybe creating a semifinal on the last weekend of the season. And I've thought about this a long time. There was a time where I thought the ACC was going to end up at 16 teams. This goes back 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it was. And I thought, man, if you had four-team divisions, you can simply have your 4 division winners pair off in semifinals and have them advance to your championship game. But right now, you could take your 4 best teams, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and have them play on the last weekend of the season and advance, and the winners advance to the championship game. You can take your last weekend of conference play and have your teams pair up accordingly to create good matchups and have the semifinals. I mean, that would be good TV.
But I mean, are these additional games?
No. These are the last regular season games.
I know. So I know. I'm coming out of this playoff where I just watched, bodies dropping left and right.
No, I'm not adding games. I am not adding games at all. It's the same. Just the last regular season game just happens to be a to be announced. We don't know who the opponent is yet. So if Carolina was going to, on Thanksgiving weekend, not that Carolina, although maybe Carolina will be in the top 4 with Bill Belichick. If Carolina was going to play, normally would play State in the last weekend of the season. No, you'd play State the weekend before. You'd get that rivalry game out the weekend before. And then on Thanksgiving weekend, we don't know. Carolina, you finished 3rd. Who finished 2nd? It was Miami, Carolina, Miami, at Miami, to see who advances to the conference championship game. I think that would be good TV.
It could. It also
You're
might
not convinced.
I'm not convinced at all. I think that it would get buried. I think that it'd be something that'd be like really creative and really fun for the fan bases involved. But I don't know that it would. I don't think that it would take precedent on rivalry weekend over rivalry. I don't know that you're going to hear Clemson, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Louisville. I don't know if you're going to hear from all those schools that they'd be interested in freeing up that weekend where, on one hand, that you've got a guaranteed rivalry game. On the other hand, you might not make the top 4 and you're stuck playing Stanford. I wonder whether you would be able to get everyone to buy in on being able to give that up. And so that's where it's, I get it. Like, I think that it'd create a more fair champion. Having semifinals and then a championship game is a way to address what I brought up in terms of, an 8-game schedule declaring a regular season champion. But I am skeptical. I am skeptical that the schools that have rivalry games built into their calendar for their fan bases, and that even your media rights partner would be interested in losing. Like all those ACC, SEC matchups hold key spots on the television calendar. To know that you are going to lose those, and then not have the guaranteed matchups, knowing what they're going to be because you're waiting for the standings. I am skeptical of whether that one would catch.
All right. It merits fleshing out. All right. Give me a Bill Belichick update, Chip Patterson. CBSSports.com. First time I've mentioned the Cover 3 podcast. I can't believe it. Give me a Bill Belichick update. From what I hear, everything's kind of been very under the radar. I don't think they're going anywhere. I think Michael Lombardi is, very present on social media, television, as Bill Belichick is on TV, about Carolina, at least this year. How have they done in the portal? Josh McDaniel, by the way, just agreed to be the offensive coordinator at the New England Patriots, which I believe they're going to just name the position after him at this point. What are your thoughts on where we are?
I might have mentioned this to you last week. I can't remember, but they are committed. And I don't say that slyly, or I don't say that in the way that it's sometimes mentioned, but I do think that they are putting together a coaching staff that is not loaded up with guys that were at the top of the 24/7 Sports Recruiter ranking. They are not putting together a staff that, for the most part, has all the who's who and the names that you're like, oh yeah, he was at Georgia and Texas, and
right.
Mac Brown put together those kinds of staff, right? You would look around and you would just see a bunch of college lifers that had been at a lot of big programs. They'd they'd been position coaches on some really good teams. And this is a little bit more of was special teams coach in the NFL, was, Freddie Kitchens, offensive coordinator or head coach of the Cleveland Browns. We've got, this guy from the IMG Academy, which, to be fair to North Carolina, is opening up a direct line and a connection to one of the, great developers of talent in the Southeast down there in Bradenton. But it is still when Bill Belichick promised, he said, we are going to, coach them like pros. We're going to run the operation like pros. There's a heavy NFL influence on the staff that they put together. You mentioned the portal. I don't know anybody in this portal cycle who has gone out there and created a transformational portal haul. The talent in the transfer portal has not been overwhelming. I think it's a drop-off from the last couple of off seasons. And you know why? Because the future, where you have the opportunity to have revenue sharing and things
right.
coming out of the house settlement, schools are ponying up for roster retention. Assistant coaches, player personnel people from across the country had names on their board that they thought were going to be in the portal that they were hoping to go after, and those names just never popped up. And so I don't think that for North Carolina there is the talent level to have a transformational portal class. I know that they have filled some spots, they have identified some quality players, but like an Ole Miss, 27 players with 4 blue chip portal guys, or Louisville with 24 portal players, and a new starting quarterback, 2 new starting wide receivers. I just don't see a lot of teams anywhere being able to go into the transfer portal. Again, tons and tons of names
right.
are in there, but we are not seeing the kind of transformational talent in the transfer portal. So where does that leave North Carolina? It leaves North Carolina with a general roster talent level that is at or maybe a slight step down from where they were this past season. That's going to put a lot on the shoulders of the coaching staff in terms of getting them ready for the upcoming fall. And I continue to come back to, as Jacoby Criswell leaves and goes to East Tennessee State. As you're looking around at the quarterback market, there's gonna be another portal window after spring practice. But as of right now, it looks like Max Johnson's going to be your starting quarterback for the North Carolina Tar Heels. And so with Max Johnson and the team that they have in place, they can absolutely make a bowl game. But make a bowl game talent and meet the expectations of Bill Belichick just got hired for $10 million a year talent. They're not there yet. So it'll be a great test for the multiple-time Super Bowl winning coach to take a group and try to get the absolute most out of it. I mean, he always was Mr. Trade Back. He was Mr. Day 3 pick. And you know what, Adam? They got a lot of – they don't have actual Day 3 picks, but relative to the college game, you got some Day 3 picks there. So he needs to figure out a way to make some shining stars out of them.
That was a wet snowball to a cold neck right there. Gosh, we could all go back and feel those days. Chip Patterson, CBSSports.com, Cover 3 podcast, my friend. Thank you so much, even for the sobering end to this conversation. I've done this before. There's no way I'll remember, but I'm going to try. Next week, I'm going to ask you for your PGA Tour Player of the Year. Next week, not now. Next week.
Okay, so but this is the
prediction.
The prediction?
Yes, next week. Think about it.
Okay.
All right, man.
Okay. Are we doing is handmade ravioli making an appearance?
It might.
It might. Can the PGA Tour Player of the Year be handmade ravioli?
Yes, it can. It absolutely can.
Handmade ravioli is doing a better job of beating the best of the best than anybody else that I've seen so far.
Gosh. All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Sounds good. Y'all be well.